Good morning, family. Happy Saturday. I woke up at the ass crack of dawn today for no reason, and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I tried for like an hour, and I just gave up and came down to make my little coffee. You like my hair? Nathan made me a few braids yesterday at night. I forced him to play with my hair because Bae wasn't home. Usually, somebody plays with my hair, and yeah. So I wanted to read you guys another bit of God in a Costume, Remembering Who You Really Are by Angie Peguero. And we last left off in the chapter that says, You chose all of it. Remember when I spoke to you about, you know, how your soul, when I read last, that your soul chose to come at specific people, right? And I spoke a little bit about my dad. So we'll go to this part. Now, that does not mean that it makes the experience of the pain less real. It just makes it more sacred. Put it back a little bit. My hair. So the next time life feels too much, the next time you look at your story and wonder why, remember this. You chose this, the whole thing. And you chose it because you knew, even before you forgot, that you were more than capable of finding your way back to yourself. That is not weakness, my love. That is the most courageous thing a soul can do. And you did it. You are doing it right now. Reading these words, you are already on your way back. You did it not to stumble into this life. You volunteered. I ran out of space 2 minutes into the video. So, back to it. That is not your weakness, my love. That is the most courageous thing a soul can do. And you did it. You are doing it. Ay, Dios mío, vete bajón. Espérate. Ay, Dios mío. Dios Padre. You're doing it right now. Reading these words, you are already on your way back. You did not stumble into this life. You volunteered for it. And that makes you exactly what you forgot you were, a master. And then remember this. So at the end, she puts those bullet points and it says, these are the things that the chapter was about. I'm just trying to hone it all in. It says, your soul designed this life before you arrived. The parents, the experiences, the exit. Nothing that happened to you was random. It was all chosen at the soul level. You chose your parents, you chose your siblings, you chose Bae, you chose the kids you would have. It's all soul contracts, right? The question is never, why did this happen to me? It is, what did I come here to learn from this, right? Even the ones who hurt you agreed at the soul level to play that role. This is not about excusing hurt. It's an explanation, right? Earth is the most challenging school in the universe, and you signed up anyway, right? So you got some big ass balls. Or maybe big ass vagina, because vaginas are very strong. That makes you not a victim. It makes you a master. And you are already on your way back to yourself, reading these words as proof. Yes, ma'am. All right, I'm going to start the awakening. The next chapter is called The Awakening. And I can imagine how great it's going to be. So it goes like this. The awakening. For the soul to evolve, it has to go through an experience it needs to evolve from. That is the whole point of everything you have read so far. The veil, the layers, the choosing, none of this is random. It was a curriculum, carefully, intentionally designed by the highest version of you, so that one day, in one single moment, or slowly over the years, something inside you would crack open and you would begin to remember. That cracking open is called the awakening. And here is the thing you need to know about it. It is never linear. Do not let anyone sell you a straight, clean path from asleep to awake. That is not how this works. The awakening is a spiral. You go up and you come down and you go up again. But here is the important part: you never go as low as when you started. Every descent is just a preparation for a faster, higher ascent. Yes. The awakening journey is not about never falling asleep again. It is about needing sleep less, waking up faster, recognizing the dream sooner. You get better at staying awake within the game. That is the whole point. The awakening starts differently for everyone because your soul, and I say this with so much love, is a bit of a drama queen. It knows exactly which story, which moment, which experience will crack you open the widest. And it will use that. It will wait for exactly the right moment, and then it will pull the thread that unravels everything. For some people, it is grief. For some, it is hitting rock bottom. For some, it is arriving at everything they thought they wanted and feeling absolutely nothing when they get there. That last one was me. That's the first trigger in my awakening. Similar to her, it was something like that for me too. In 2018, I had everything. I had the house, I had the husband, I had the two kids, the boy and the girl. I had the job. I was already working on my master's, so I was going to be at the top of my career, and I was like, there's still a void inside me, you know. And then even deeper in 2020 with the vid, that's it. That was where I couldn't go back. And anyway, so let me go back. Um she says, I had gone from just making it to making a lot of money. I had the house, I had the things, I had arrived, and at least by every measure the world had given me to measure by, and I felt like shit, a deep, unshakable unfulfillment that I could not explain and could not outrun. And one day a question rose up inside me that I could not silence. Is this really all that it is? I'm supposed to get here and this is it? Right? Like you checked all the boxes and everything, and then you're like, it's supposed to feel better than this, right? Isn't life supposed to be more beautiful than this? And so my soul refused to accept that, refused to let me settle. And that refusal, that divine dissatisfaction, was the beginning of everything. And then my father died in 2020. That was my second trigger. And I was the daughter who refused to go to the funeral. I did not go to the burial. I did not visit him in the hospital. Because at that point in my life, I hated my father, genuinely, deeply consumed by it, hated him. See, my father was an alcoholic, a drug addict. Growing up with him meant growing up on edge, in chaos, never knowing what version of him was coming through the door. I could not rely on him. And my mother, caught in her own fear, never left that relationship. Hold on, put this here back up. It's distracting. It's so distracting, this hair. This mine. And my mother, caught in her own fear, never left that relationship. And that alone felt like its own betrayal. Why would you choose to keep us in this, Mom? I asked myself that more times than I can count. I grew up feeling unsupported by my father and abandoned by my mother's choices. That was the story I carried. That was the costume I wore. And the hate was so heavy, so complete, that before he died, I felt nothing. And then when he finally died, something cracked me open. Because the minute he was gone, for the first time in my life, I started cracking open and expanding in thought. I finally asked a question I had never thought to ask. What was his story? Not what did he do to me? Not why couldn't he just stop? But who was he? What happened to him? What made him this way? Questions have answers. And so I decided in my own curiosity finally to ask my mother. And she started telling me pieces of a story that I had never heard before. My father started drinking alcohol when he was 9 years old. 9. He was a child in a home with an unloving mother and a drunk father of his own. He never had a chance to learn anything different. He was just a soul, a deeply lost, deeply veiled soul, doing the only thing he knew how to do, with the pain he had never been taught to process. And just like that, The hate that had lived in my chest for decades began to dissolve. Not all at once, but through deep soul cries after the deep realizations I had. The kind of crying that does not come from just your eyes, it comes from somewhere much older than that. Around that time, I went to get Reiki for the first time because I was curious about it and felt called. It was my first exposure to energy work, and before the session even began, the woman doing it looked at me and said, "You have to forgive your dad. It is time." Una bruja. I'm a bruja too. She told me what to do. She said, "Grab a pen and paper and write down all the reasons you forgive your dad." So I did. I sat down. I intuitively put on 528 hertz, the frequency of unconditional love. Tap in 528 hertz. Look for music in YouTube. Put that on before sleep. Put that on your ride to work, subconsciously. And she said, and I wrote, "Thank you for the lessons. I forgive you. I forgive you for all of it. And I forgive myself for not realizing it sooner. I forgive myself for treating you the way I treated you. I did the best I could with what I knew. I understand now that I chose you to be my father in this lifetime. Thank you for being my greatest teacher." How many of us have to write this forgiveness letter to our parents, right? And some of our parents are still alive. Anyways, I did this for 5 straight days. Every single day I sat with the pen and the paper and the music, and I wrote and I cried because my body was releasing years, decades of emotional pain that had been stored in my vessel without me even knowing it was there. And on the 5th day, I sat down to write, and the tears did not come. Not because I was suppressing them, but because there was nothing left to release. The vessel was clear. That was the moment I understood that forgiveness is not something you do for that other person. It's something you do for the soul that has been carrying the weight of emotional pain within their body. I finally understood in my bones, not intellectually, that my father was not my enemy. He was my greatest teacher. I chose him to be part of my life, to wear the costume of the villain in my story, so that my soul could learn compassion, understanding, forgiveness, unconditional love, grace, right? The things I could not have learned any other way other than through experiencing it. I know that now, and I am grateful, genuinely, fully, from the bottom of my soul, grateful for every single experience I had with him. That is what the awakening does. It does not just open your eyes, it rewrites everything you thought you knew. After my father's death, then certain questions consume me. What happens when we die? Where did he go? Is he being punished for the life he lived? Does hell exist? All of a sudden, I cared about things I had never let myself care about before. And that caring, that hunger, led me synchronistically to a book that a friend placed in my hands in 2021. The book is called Conversations with God. I'm going to get that book because she's promoted this a lot. And something in those pages made the lights come on in a way I did not know was possible. Some of it I wrestled with in the beginning. Some of it landed so deep it felt like a memory more than a revelation or resonance, right? So there's truths in us, right, that we already know, but there's a moment when you resonate with it, when you resonate with that truth, when like your soul like sees, hears that truth and just accepts it, and you like it, and that's it. It's like it's not even mentally. It's like this like remembrance, like she said, a revelation. But it cracked me open further, and I kept going. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. She's gonna go into her Kundalini, but I'm 12 minutes in. Okay, plus the other 2 minutes, 14 minutes. Anyways, love you guys. Hope you enjoyed this reading, and 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 I hope a lot of you guys can maybe see yourselves in her story, and realize that many of us, not me per se, because my mom is like my favorite person in the world, and my dad too, but many people have tough relationship with their parents. Some of you guys parents are the villains in your story too, and so Maybe hearing this can help you forgive them a bit and forgive them while they're still alive, and maybe write yourself or write them a letter forgiving them, because again, we chose these parents, we chose these lessons. And yeah, and forgiveness is for ourselves, right? Because you forgiving them liberates you, it brings you peace, it lets go of that energetic cord that you have towards them, you know. And so you're cutting those cords and you're like, I release you, you know. I And then the story that you have about them is rewritten into something that's more compassionate, more graceful, you know, more loving. And maybe then you can start with asking those questions, you know, what made them the way they were? Why did they become that parent, you know? Why did they become that adult that was that way with you? And so how was their childhood? You know, who did they get that from? Who abused them? Who was mean to them? Who treated them like shit? So then they did that to you. But anyways, I love y'all again. Peace out.